Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest health podcast on planet Earth, as voted by my mum. So, I'm your host today. My name is Femi.
I'm the co-host, Nick.
And we've got a very, very interesting guest today. Someone that is our mentor, personal friend, and someone that's done a lot of amazing things. He's grown a business to over $20 million before. He's a CEO, he's a podcaster, he's a speaker, he's an author, he's a lot of things. And at the end of the day, he's just all around magic. Mr. Ryan Magic Madges, what is going on today, man?
So good to be here with you guys.
Honestly.
And thank you for that. And I haven't built a $20 million business. I built a $10 million business, but that's...
That's just
inflating the figures to the
numbers.
100 million.
Awesome
to be here, though.
8-figure CEO, 8-figure business builder is still huge, regardless of what it is, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. And this just to mention, this gentleman this is all by what? The age of what? 23, 24 when you built that?
25.
25.
So let's deflate those. We'll go back. Bring it back 21.
When I was born, 17, you had a $16 million business. This is the richest man alive.
It's so cool to be here today, having seen your journey right from the beginning, building your first impact-driven business, and now then going on the amazing race, and then seeing you really connect to a bigger mission to make a difference, like doing what you really think is going to make the biggest difference to people's lives, which is the mental health space.
100%.
Awesome to see that.
I appreciate
Thank
that,
you, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
So how we always kick off every podcast, we like to spice things up a little bit, we don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty straight away. So we have a very exciting thing for you to do today, Ryan.
Very exciting. Well, it's exciting for us.
Yeah, I know, it might not be exciting for you. It's what we call we haven't really come with a perfect name for it, but for the time being, we're going to go with icebreaker.
It's just an icebreaker.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of this is to, like we said, not be too serious. Yeah. Start off really easy and start to see, how switched on are you, Mr. Ryan Magic.
Bring it on.
That's what we're going to do, right? So what we're going to do today, your game today.
What happened?
No, go.
Your game today is very simple and very easy, actually. So we're going to give you a series of questions on topics that you should know.
Bring it on.
You should know. And for every question you get wrong, you take a sip of that lovely green beverage.
I smelt it.
Yeah. It's
What's
disgusting.
it? I didn't make it, so
I
actually
thought it smelled delightful.
Okay, you're not
drinking that one then.
So what's actually in it is you have Maxim. Shout out to Maxim. Feel free to sponsor us.
At any time, we're more than welcome.
We also have some
free range eggs.
some free range eggs.
Yeah.
We have some.
So I'm going to get jacked.
Yep. We have some juice.
Beautiful.
We have some raspberry jam in there.
Yum.
Have some tomato sauce.
Yum.
Have some mayonnaise in there. So we have a variety of things. I'm not sure why I ended up being green, if I'm being honest.
I thought you made me a green smoothie.
Yeah, honestly, all the vegans
delightful.
watching this are like, I want to be on this podcast. I want to drink some vegan juice. So
I hope it tastes bad.
look, I hope it tastes.
too excited.
It actually smells pretty good.
Yeah, I know. I smelled it and I was a bit upset. Like,
All right, bring it on.
boom. So it's going to be on questions that you really should know. It's going to be about, we know that Mr. Ryan Magic loves galleries and he loves going on exhibitions. Oh, look at him. He doesn't know I know that. He doesn't know I know that. I've done my research.
He was shocked.
Ryan, we know a lot of things about you don't think we know. So it's going to be about galleries. It's going to be about golf because Mr. Ryan Magic is a, professional golfer back in his day.
I played comp.
Yeah, you
Bring
did.
it up.
See, I know that. And he's also an avid meditation. He's an avid meditation teacher, actually. So it's going to be about some really, meditation-y things.
Bring on the questions.
All right. Nick, you want to ask the first three?
First, let's do
How many
it.
questions we talking?
It's just going to be about 5. Max of 5 sips.
Yeah, cool.
Let's start one. Oh, these are simple. All right. What is the name of Jay Shetty's podcast?
It is on purpose.
Easy. No, it's meant to be. They're meant to be. The first one's meant to be easy. All right.
He wants it. Give it to him.
All right. What is the name of the 2011 PGA Tour champion?
Oh,
If you get this right,
2011 PGA Tour champion.
let's just make sure we got it right.
There needs to be a timer.
Can I phone a friend?
No, you can't.
Can I get a hint?
No.
Rory
30
McIlroy?
seconds. 2011.
Rory McIlroy?
That is 110% incorrect, Mr. Man.
Who was it?
It was Keegan Bradley.
I don't even know who that is.
No one knows who that is. If it's
Got that stat wrong.
honestly, if it's really not Tiger Woods, no one really knows who it is, really.
Feel free to correct us.
Yeah. Have a good
Are you
sip.
sure this is what you said was it?
Yeah, does it taste good?
It tastes like pineapple juice.
I'm absolutely burning.
You should have a sip.
Nah, I'm good. I'm absolutely good. All right, next question. What is the next major exhibition that's coming to the NGV? For my non-Melbourne people, that's the National Gallery of Victoria, I believe, is the full.
I actually don't know much about art at all. I just like looking at it. The Mona Lisa is coming down.
So incorrect.
Actually, if you had any knowledge of art, you would have known that
can't move.
they're actually bringing the Mona Lisa in for
Well-
the next exhibition.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ryan Magic, for hijacking the show. Nah, it's actually coming.
No,
Oh no, it's not.
no, it's not.
Wow, so you said that so honestly, I was like,
Is it?
I think that earns you guys a sip.
Oh.
I didn't forfeit, but I didn't. Femi's the one that questioned it. I was just like, I don't know what this guy's talking about.
No, it does not taste fresh.
You didn't even taste it yet.
Have a sip. Have a sip.
No, I haven't
It
seen
actually tastes.
I think it's because I know what I put in it. That's why it's like, because it doesn't taste that bad.
it doesn't.
No, it does not taste bad at all.
Yeah. It tastes like.
This was the worst drink ever.
I smelled it. I smelled it when I saw that drink, and I'm like, I knew because I told these guys to put the games in the show.
Honestly,
I'm like, what's in that?
honestly,
Wow,
we
I'm
should make our
disappointed.
own juice brand because we just accidentally just made a banger.
No, that's it.
Accidentally made a banger.
You should take this podcast off immediately. Get into manufacturing.
Last question, just because we're running out of time. Alrighty.
I'm ready.
So, can you name us 3 meditation tactics?
Say the last word.
Tactics or meditation
Techniques?
techniques.
I thought you said tactics.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said too. I was like, what is that?
Techno tactics. Yeah. One giant mind being technique, Vedic meditation, transcendental being technique.
Do you know what that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
Do you
that,
approve?
according to the google.com, that is 100% correct, Mr. Ryan Magic. But in the
don't
sake
have
of the
that
podcast, please have another sip of our beautiful juice.
It's good. It's good.
Is it good?
Enjoy it.
Enjoy
Yeah,
it.
put the water
It's actually a
away
good
then.
egg. It's got a full egg in it. It's got a raw egg in it.
It
And some
legit
tomato
tastes
sauce.
absolutely solid. You guys tasted it.
I tasted it. I
Tastes like
like it.
pineapple juice.
Man, it's not bad.
I actually had this in the morning.
Oh no, it's actually
It's my new morning
It's
routine.
actually good for you as well.
Nah, I'm waking up to this every morning. Get some egg yolk.
Nick and Femi's mind juice every morning.
Boom, let's get straight into it.
It's legit solid. That's funny. All right,
Boom. So obviously today we've got a very, very influential man and someone that's done a lot of things in business, but also in a lot of other areas as well, right? And I feel like people might only know you for being the business guy or being the guy that, if you've ever been on Facebook from the times of 2017 to 2016, 2018, you definitely would have seen this man yelling at you on your
way back from
Facebook
work.
screen. So can you tell us about that? Like, how did you get into business and like, why business?
Yeah, man. Well, when I was younger, I had a dad that was like very strict on me. And I used to play a lot of sport and golf, as you mentioned before. And I was always looking to kind of like prove myself to my dad. So sport was my way to do that initially. And then when I got into the end of high school and I'm looking at all the subjects that you can do going into uni, none of it really felt like it was going to be enough of a stretch. And because we spoke about this on the weekend at the workshop that you guys are at, but from when we're younger, very much how we're parented determines who we become as adults. And so because my dad had that strict way of teaching me how to grow up in the world, like very critical, I always wanted to try to prove myself to him. So I found myself like always just like working really hard in sport, working really hard at school, and it was like, what's next? And so I reckon that's why I got into business, and I'm really glad that I did. But I think it actually came from a place of like pressure and insecurity initially to prove myself to my dad at the end of the day, which I would not have liked the idea of, because I didn't like my dad. He was quite abusive, drug dealer, and yeah, that's not what I would have liked to conceptually say, but it's legit, I think.
Yeah. So how did you deal with that then? Because that sounds rough, man. Like if you've got all of that, just a side note, just to take off on a bit of a tangent with what you just said, how did you actually deal with it?
Yeah, so growing up, like the way that whenever I was feeling pressure, like my coping mechanism was work. So like when I was like 8, it was pretty insane. Like when I was like 8 years old, I would like literally get up in the morning, do push-ups, sit-ups, take myself for a 5K run, practice sport before school, after school. So, my whole upbringing, that was my coping mechanism. And I think that society like really looks up to achievement. Yeah. Even though a lot of it's fueled from insecurity. And then you have other people whose coping mechanisms are more destructive, and then are completely looked down at in society. Even people that go and get a normal job or just like work in corporate or whatever, a lot of the time they're doing that to appease their parents by not going too much outside the status quo and keeping their parents feeling safe, and they're safe and it's all normal. That in itself is still a coping mechanism. Yeah. So I feel like I was lucky in the sense that the coping mechanisms I used growing up actually were always looked kindly on. And so it was obsessive, and I felt like I was almost in fight or flight all the time, trying to prove myself, and I didn't really feel grounded in who I was. I was always needing to be someone who was doing bigger or being more successful, or if I wasn't first, I didn't feel good. Yeah. So sport, again, I think in my upbringing, or studying actually, when I got to the end of my high school, I was just like studying heaps. It was always working hard, was like my way of dealing with it, which was kind of like pushing it down. Yeah, man.
Pushing what down?
Pushing down, like, I guess, the trauma. Like you mentioned, like, how'd you grow up with a drug abusive dad? Like, it was actually quite traumatic. Like, there was a lot of abuse and fighting and yelling, and it was pretty insane kind of situation for myself and my sister, because when I was 13, my mum left, and it was just Ali, my sister, and I living with my dad, who was kind of suicidal and abusive and angry and hated himself, and he loved us, but because he was also dealing with mental health issues, like he was suicidal and he had like really severe anxiety and depression, he would project that onto us. And so yeah, I would escape and just work hard and think that would, I guess that was what I was pushing down. I was pushing down like the emotion or the trauma from the situation just by like escaping, working hard.
And do you feel like you've addressed that? Do you feel like you kind of like...
Well, yeah, I think this is like a really good point for what I know what you guys want to do with Uncovered is normalize working on yourself with your mindset and your psychology, not just like physical symptoms. Like if someone breaks their arm, when it comes to mindset, if someone's got like a trauma, it's like you're a psycho, or there's a big problem with you if you go and seek help for your mindset. But since I was like 17, I've been working on my mindset. I've spent over $500,000 on personal development and counseling, and I've gone through so many seminars and workshops and had so many mentors that have supported me through growing past a lot of that stuff. So yeah, I really feel like I've addressed a lot of the deep wounds that kept me like feeling ashamed, but I still notice myself getting caught up in that script. So when we're 0 to 7, based on how we're parented, we create this thing called a survival script. So you imagine a child whose sole safety is based on their parents. Like if you're in the wild and your parents weren't there to protect you, you'd die definitely. Yeah. So what we do as kids is based on the positive, negative, or no strokes, meaning like affirmations that we're given, or if we're told off, how we're shaped by our parents, we form this thing called a survival script. And based on this, essentially, just imagine like literally a script where the kid is just writing like in their mind, you know, okay, I was loud, I got yelled at, don't express myself too much, you know, or, you know, you failed a test, you know, you got to get a better score. Like you need A plus only. You know, like crap, if I don't succeed, then I'm not worthy of love. And then therefore my parents won't protect me. And that's the innate fear that we all have, that we're not good enough and that we're not going to be loved. And it's really the way that then dictates the way you show up in your life is that script. That script then teaches us how to behave in the world. And so for me, like my script was an achiever script. If I'm not achieving based on how my dad was very, very harsh on me from 0 to 7, then like metaphorically, that inner child, that like 0 to 7-year-old version of myself, based on what he was told by my mom and my dad, it's like that 0 to 7-year-old kid is like driving the car of my life.
Yeah.
Because it's determining my decision making. Like if I have got to choose, do I go into business or do I get a job? The script is saying, if you don't go bigger and harder and achieve more, then you're not worthy of love and I'm not going to protect you. So I feel nervous and my decision making goes to the harder thing, the better thing, the bigger thing, etc. And if I don't, innately inside, I feel like I'm not going to be worthy of love. And that's your survival script. So that's a huge thing that I've worked through a lot, but I still know this plays out in my decision making day to day. Yeah, that's survival script.
And do you feel like if you were a bit more vocal and during your upbringing and you expressed that to like your father, do you feel like things would have been different for your life? Like, do you think you'd be this guy that's built over 8 figures in your business and done all these great things?
No. So just to be clear, this trauma that happens when you're 0 to 7, it's not something that we should, like this message that we're talking about now, I don't think the change can happen from the kids level, 0 to 7. I feel like if you're listening to this and you're like, hang on a second, my mum when I was younger, you know, would always tell me off if I was like singing in the house, and now I'm not creative at all. I'm very logical, and you're like, how do I undo that? How do I become more free with my life? You can go back and do some work on it, some psychotherapy or psychology, or seek a mentor out, do some mindset, do some research online and figure out how to kind of start moving through that. The kid's not going to be able to change it. But if you're listening to this and you understand the concept, you can be aware of it when you're parenting the next generation. And that's where it's got to change. Because 0 to 7, I mean, kids are just being kids.
And that's actually really interesting that you bring up parenting, because I feel like I'm not a parent, well, that I know of. Nah, like I'm not a parent, but like I've always thought that the moment that we actually have better conversations and we actually are more aware to our own vices and our own, you know, like our own issues, that is when we're able to actually not fuck up our kids as much. But I feel like because our parents are so unaware of what they're doing, because like not many parents, like some parents obviously, but not many parents intentionally say, I'm gonna just fuck my kid up, like I'm just gonna ruin them.
Bad intention.
It's just because they're so unaware and they just want the best, but they don't know how to actually give that best. So I think it's really, really important that we're having these conversations of being like, okay, this is how I feel my parents made me feel. This is how I feel like it's impacted me. Let's be more normal with it and not do it to our kids. Otherwise, the cycle's just going to continue.
Or at least be, I think awareness
is
the key. Because like you said, no one's intentionally going to be trying to put their kids in a position where they only conditionally love themselves. Like only if I don't talk too much, I'm worthy of love, or only if I achieve, I'm worthy of love, or only if I've got lots of friends, I'm worthy of love. No one wants to intentionally do that, but it's the awareness that causes the lack of awareness, the ignorance that causes the problem.
Huge.
But yeah, I think it doesn't matter what you do as a parent. Even subtle things can influence the way your kids grow up, and you can't help. All you can do is the best that you can. But usually what I've found, at least in my relationship, which is the main comparable thing I have for now, is the more that I'm kind of suffering internally, the worse that I treat my partner. I've got good intent all the time. Even if I'm having the worst day ever, I've still got good intent. Like I never want to purposely, you know, either put my partner down or like just be grumpy or whatever. But I notice the worse I'm feeling about myself, the worse I treat her, and the better I'm feeling about myself, the better that I treat her. So I think the responsibility at the end of the day comes just for the parent. If anyone's listening to this, it means they're aware enough and open enough that they already want to improve their lives in some way, which is amazing. But I think if everyone can take responsibility for their own behavior and feelings and emotional state, no matter what cards they were dealt when they were younger, they take it as their own responsibility to just at least heal some of the crap they've gone through growing up, then it's naturally going to see less projection of internal reality than getting forced onto other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect segue to our next kind of like section that we wanted to talk to you about, because
Yeah, sure.
so Ryan's a gentleman that's gone through a really, really... Yeah, she voluntarily. So he's a man that's gone through a really interesting transition from being a very hardcore, kind of quintessential business owner and businessman to being a lot more spiritual and a lot more about... He always talks about fulfillment. So I want to know about what your journey and your transition has been like and how you've kind of handled that or coped with that, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are trying to go through transition. It might be, gender transition, or it might be they want to go from being academic to sporting or whatever transition they're in life that's been quite polarizing. How did you kind of handle that or make that decision even?
Yeah, so just to be clear on the transition for those that are listening in, I was essentially like driving myself to the ground. So my only motivation really was what I labeled my mission, which was growing my business to help more people. And that's how I disguised that innate script from when I was younger, the achiever script. And I honestly thought the bigger I go, the more courageous I'm being and the better role model I'm being, hence the good intent. Like no one ever has bad intent.
Exactly.
But I wasn't aware of the fact that that was my script. I didn't even know what a survival script from when you're younger was. And the only reason it became a problem is because I was growing so fast that it became apparent that the only thing that I cared about was me feeling like I was successful internally. Because for me, I had to do that to feel worthy of love. So I was conditionally doing what I had to do. Like I was choosing the actions that I had to do so that I felt good about myself. And for me to feel good about myself, I had to achieve. So that powered everything. And then I got to a certain point where I started to get some feedback. Life always gives us feedback that it was time for a change of some kind, because I was getting some business failures pop up, like financial hardship, like having team problems in my 25-person company. And I was also, from like a relationship perspective, like not really hanging out with many friends. My relationship was breaking down as well, and that ended up ending. And this all happened at the exact same time that I started meditating. Yeah. And so it was like feedback. Something needs to change. And when there's something that's right in front of you that you've got all your self-worth tied to, and you've got you're so attached to that thing, like could be a relationship or a job or a business or a friends group or a drug, when you're like really addicted or attached to something, it takes some serious perspective and awareness to be able to recognize that problem. And so it took a few months, it took like 6 months to be aware of the fact that, holy crap, like this isn't actually me coming from a place of genuinely wanting to serve. This is actually me fulfilling who I need to be worthy of love. It's actually coming from insecurity. It's not coming from empowerment. And when I realized that, I was like, crap, like everything that I've known, and I'd spent 8 years building what I had, like not just in this business, but in previous businesses, and learning about business and learning about personal development. So to let go of that, and people that are listening in might realize that their whole life they're just trying to keep themselves safe, and they've actually wanted to be an artist, but they're in a job. And it's like when you realize that it's all been about safety, and it's blocking your freedom. Because for me, I thought financially, business, more successful you are in business, the more financially free you become, and therefore the more freedom you have in your life, which is actually incorrect, because the bigger that I got, the more attached I was, and the more that I raised the standards up for me to feel good. And so I actually started the complexity expanded out, and it became even more difficult for me to feel free, because I actually penciled myself into this situation where I had more to manage, more to deal with, and more had to go right for me to feel good. So when I realized that, then I started consciously opening up to the idea of letting go. And so I've essentially broken down to break through, meaning I've almost created a clean slate for myself on purpose, so that I can actually be okay without having anything, and love myself without having anything, so that I can build from a solid foundation. Because it's kind of like a drug addict. It's not like a heroin addict can try to get enough heroin in one day that if they hit a certain amount, then they've got enough heroin for the rest of their life. It's like the next day they're going to be even more driven for that heroin and addicted to that heroin. Same for me with my success. It was like I couldn't have a certain amount of success, or I hit a goal that was big enough. It's like, now it's done. It's an addiction. And so learning to unravel that script and be okay without it has been a huge thing for me. And I feel like I'm at a point now where, like I said, I've gone to neutral, but learning to love myself unconditionally. And I think it's a very special thing that not many people even set as an intention. But that's like feeling good. Like, I think the quality of our life comes down to the quality of our emotions. And if we can feel fulfilled and love who we are, then we feel good. And I think a lot of people normalize their life and just go, this is it, we're just going to stay here. They might do a job that they don't enjoy, in a relationship that doesn't fulfill them, and not giving themselves time to do what they actually creatively are inspired to do. And then it's just like life ends. So yeah, I'm really excited to be at this new kind of tipping point, turning point in my life where joy is the goal, fulfillment is the goal.
That's huge. And I really like what you said. It's like the quality of our life is based on like our emotions and our ability to be able to control that state. Because I think it's really important that people actually understand what that means and what that actually is going to look like. Because unless we understand our emotions and are able to actually control them and be able to be like, okay, look, I know what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it, and be able to know how to make myself feel good. That's what's going to control whether you're having a good day or bad day, or you're having a good life or bad life, right? Yeah. So I feel like people need to not underestimate what it means to actually meditate or talk about their feelings or have those kind of conversations. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to actually regulate that. Because I guess for me, it wasn't until I put emphasis on trying to actually understand my emotions and my feelings and all that kind of stuff, was I able to improve my life or whatever it is and understand what it looks like. And the same with you, like when you started meditating and going actively seeking it, it's not going to happen unless you do so. Like,
I think one of my biggest struggles, and even like I was saying to you the other day, was that like I feel like for myself I'm so emotionally unstable because sometimes I don't understand my emotions, and I just feel like I don't know whether I'm actually in a joyous state or if I'm sad or if I'm happy or just very neutral. Like those are one of the biggest challenges. And I was even asking Famous, like, how do you kind of feel like if I'm actually genuinely having a good time or if I'm actually just forcing myself to have a good time? And that's still a question to this day that I'm trying to figure out. So I don't know if you guys got any input or have any type of struggles with that, because even to this day, it's still something that I still struggle with.
I think a really good litmus test for people to be able to vet what they're doing in their life and how it's making them feel is, if they didn't have it, how would they feel? So for example, like, I think there's two types of activities that people can do. Like, I call it half like ego-based activities and then essence-based activities. And I'll give some examples of each so people have a rough frame of reference. So like an ego-based activity is like emotional eating. So like binge eating, alcohol, drugs. But then there's things like comparison, gossip, dramatizing things. Putting people down, porn. And there's all these like intense things that people do. And it's like, if you just ask yourself with any of those things, do you feel in fear? Or do you feel, or shopping, buying, like over shopping, over buying, like needing to look good. If you were to take it away, would there be any defensiveness or would there be any fear there? So for example, if you say to someone that's just like obsessed with shopping, like if we take away that, or makeup, like they need to dress themselves up heaps. If we take that away, who would you be without that? And people are like, no, I need that. There's an attachment there. That's when you know that it's actually coming from fear and not love, which is ego, not essence. Right. Essence-based activities, most of them, which is really cool, are like really cheap or free. Like being in nature, you actually, and you gotta test this. There's this beautiful idea that a lady called Marie Forleo has, which is try it before you deny it. Who cares what I say if it makes no impact in your life? Just go and try it. Be in nature, like go into nature, and and it's free. Breathing.
Usually a good start.
But like consciously breathing,
Yeah.
deep breathing, like pranayama breathing or just deep breathing. Exercising, eating healthier. All these things, sex, connection, eye gazing with other people, like meditating, these activities are cheap or free. You can just go do this whenever you want. And you usually feel awesome and you feel lighter without it. But then you ask yourself for the ego activities, like who are you without that? So for some people, if there's a fear of letting it go, there's that attachment. And then you're constantly oscillating between like getting the hit and then feeling shit without it. Or feeling crap without it. Getting the hit, feeling crap without it, which means you're always in fight or flight. There's stress in the body, and that's toxic. And over time, that's what causes like depression, and that's what causes like people to feel low in who they are, and then that can go into become bigger problems.
Spiral in that, yeah. And I guess even just to talk about what you said as well, Nick, like, I think the best way to be able to actually understand your emotions is to actually actively try to. Like, actually, like, when you feel something, just write it down and say, this is how I feel, and be able to reflect on it. Because the only reason why you don't understand it, or you don't get it, or you don't feel like it's just overwhelming because you've never really tried to like actually be like, all right, this is really what I feel right now.
What would you recommend doing to understand it?
For me, what I do personally is, and what I recommend to everyone I talk to, is to journal. I really, really highly recommend journaling and self-reflecting. And trust me, I'm the least like woohoo person in the room. Like I hate it. Like I hate I hate feeling like something's just up in the air. But I feel like until I was able to actually sit down and self-reflect, that was the only time that I was able to actually make tangible sense of what I was feeling emotionally, because I've been going through a lot of like really tough times back in the day, and even told Nick and had a lot of my close friends where I really felt like just distant and didn't know what to feel like. And I had a lot of friends, but I still felt really lonely, and I didn't know why or what it was until I started to write shit down and be like, okay, the reason why I'm feeling lonely is because I feel like people don't understand me. I feel like people don't get what I'm talking about. And the reason why they don't get it is because I'm not actually communicating. And it might be an issue with me, or it might be an issue with what I'm doing in life. And it wasn't until I started writing down and I did like a bit of a thematic analysis of like, okay, these are the constant themes. I feel bad, or I feel happy when I'm doing this, or I feel pressure, and I feel all those different words, because words are really powerful when we journal. Like we don't say things on accident. If you're saying I feel pressure 3, 4, 5 times in a row in a day, probably feel pressure. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. And once you're able to write that down and comprehend it, you're able to make steps from that. That's
So
what
you just kind of like word vomit it, or is there like a series or kind of structure that you put in place when you're journaling?
No structure. Do not overthink it. No structure. Just write. Just write and just whatever. And you can even journal from just talking to your partner, or talking to your best mate, or doing whatever it is. It doesn't have to be physical writing. You can type it down.
The higher level idea is expression.
Exactly.
Yeah, just because this stuff is it's normal not to express how you feel, it doesn't mean that it's not important. And the way that I look at it is that we use our minds and our emotions and our thoughts all day, every day. We use our physical bodies less than we use our minds. It's like our brain's actually the most active part of our body. From like if you measure the activity of every part of your body, your brain's the most used part of your body. But what do we do to train that? Like we're all obsessed with going to the gym and looking good and feeling good from that standpoint. But why don't we do these things that are good for our brain? Yeah. Like if you just used a car all the time and you didn't service it, or you didn't like fill it with petrol, or you didn't have water to cool it down, then it would explode. And with our brain, like journaling is a way that just by expressing, it's like a detox, and then just like neutralizes our brain so we can keep functioning well. Same thing with meditation. Same thing with, there's a bunch of personal development activities, even reading or talking to someone, but it's just seen in society as being weird because it's not normal, but that doesn't mean it's not important. Just look at common sense.
Yeah, exactly right.
Awesome. Try it.
Try it
before you deny it.
Honestly, that's a massive one. Try before you deny it, because everyone's going to listen to this like, oh yeah, fucking journaling, oh yeah, fucking, oh yeah, wanker. But like, honestly, the truth is, I had the exact same reaction until I did it, and then it made all the difference in a really hard time in my life.
I think that's been the biggest issue. It's like I hear all these things, and everything that you're saying is like I've heard it before,
But you don't do
you
it.
just never tried it.
You just don't do
That's
it.
the issue, yeah.
That's the thing. It's like what Gary Vee says. It's like, I can give you all the strategies in the world, but until you try it, like, it's actually meaningless.
Yeah.
But it can be scary. Like if you're journaling and allowing things just to come out and be expressed, you don't know what's going to come up there because you don't control it. You surrender to what's coming out by doing it fast, so you can't think about what's coming out, and you might have some scary thoughts come out.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay with that and give yourself grace and just be like, that's that building of unconditional love, like this. And what it looks like in the world is not being in fear. It's like not walking around like, what does that person think of me? How am I going to react in this situation? It's like, I'm cool. Yeah. I'm all G no matter what. And that's a nice feeling to have. Yeah. It's going to get you further in life, but it's going to feel better as well.
That's awesome.
I love that.
All right. Well, honestly, we've just got one last segment because we've talked a lot about, you know, your journey and all that stuff, but we want to know a little bit of the little nitty gritties of Ryan Magic. So, Majak. Ryan Majokovic. Ryan's actually half Sudanese. Ryan Majok. So we've got. So what we do with every one of our guests is that we ask a series of rapid fire questions just to get you know. Yeah, so it's 1 to 2 sentences only, please, and keep it short.
And let's get straight to it.
Let's get straight to it. Let's do it.
Boom. First one. Favorite movie.
Favorite movie, Captain Fantastic.
Ooh, Captain Fantastic. All right.
It's not a superhero movie. It's amazing. Check it out.
I thought it was a superhero. I'm like, so it's like Captain Marvel kind of similar thing.
No, it's not. It's a cool story.
Favorite travel destination.
Slovenia.
What?
Yeah, you want good answers?
Yeah.
Or do you want vanilla?
Vanilla. But we went to Slovenia. We did the caves, remember? The caves.
Yeah.
We did the caves. We did that. That was dope.
Ljubljana is like the city there. It's so beautiful and it's like not too touristy.
Yeah, and it's got that waterfalls as well. That waterfall. Remember?
Yeah, the water there because all the rocks are like white, so all the rivers are like turquoise blue.
Yeah, remember when Claudia and that were saying that they wanted to go, but they were burning that the bus didn't stop there? Oh yes. Yeah, Slovenia's dope. Shout out to Slovenia.
Most important item in your life.
I'd say my laptop. Okay. If there's an item, I'd say there's things that are more important to me, but they wouldn't be items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. Dope. Most attractive quality in someone.
Grounded confidence.
Good answers. These are good answers.
I like this one.
He didn't make $10 million by accident. He knows exactly what he's doing. I love this. Good.
And what would be your number one tip / advice for someone in life?
I'd say take the time to learn who you are and just set your sole intention to live aligned to yourself, and live your life in a way like nobody else is watching. So if no one else was watching, like how would you live your life? And the word is alignment. Like if that's your whole mission, then you're going to have an amazing life.
That's awesome. I love that. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, that's it, Ryan. Where do we find you? On socials, where do people want to find you?
I didn't get a clap.
You didn't get a clap.
That's okay.
So where do people find you on socials?
Just look up Ryan Magic.
Yeah.
RyanMagic.com on my website, or just search Ryan Magic.
Just simple, no extra spelling, just RyanMag.
I don't think you can get much more complicated than that. Man.
No, but I'm saying like
just Ryan Magic.
Just easy.
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
Yeah.
You know.
And if anyone is watching and has got any comments or feedback, just send me an email to ryan@ryanmagic.com. Love to get an email with any shares or questions.
It's awesome.
Fantastic.
That's beautiful. Thank you guys for checking in on the Uncovered podcast. I've been the host at Who's Femi on Instagram, at Femi and Nick, or Nick and Femi on Instagram.
Yeah, Nick and Femi. Mine's too hard, so I'm just gonna find it on Nick and Femi because I gotta change it.
Yeah, you gotta change it.
Too many E's.
Too many E's.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's been an awesome podcast today. It's been an awesome guest, and I'm so grateful to be in this guy's presence, man.
100%.
Honestly, he's an absolute legend in what he does. So, you know, the juice.
Cheers.
Enjoy the juice.
Cheers.
And we'll catch you next
Where
week.
can people find the recipe?
Just email us at Nick and Femi.
Yeah.
There'll be an online store coming up soon.
The
Muscle Fami's Juice Bar.
Coca-Cola needs to pay us at least 10 mil, at least 50 mil to get the recipe, and then we'll start making some bank from this. All right, thank you so much, guys. Catch you
Thanks,
next
guys.
week. Love.